Hello everyone, I'm Bruffy1322 and this video is going to show the fastest fully upgraded Sports Classics cars in terms of lap time. We're quickly going to go over the slowest vehicles right now, and as always the position counter is in the top left with the best lap time the car achieved in the top right. This video only focuses on track performance, so if you're interested in top speed where braking, cornering and acceleration aren't relevant, check the link in the description for the top speed testing series, and if you want to know more information about this testing, including the extent to which it's accurate and how useful it is for you personally, have a read of the full description as everything that you need is in there. This video lists all cars and is correct as of the Super Sport Series update. For vehicles added after that or other classes of cars, check the playlist linked in the second line of the description, and feel free to check out my Patreon if you want to get these testing results a few days before the videos go up every Thursday. So these are the slowest vehicles in the Sports Classics class, and they're kind of in their own little class really. Obviously the Tornado, the Mariachi Tornado was the very bottom one because it's exactly the same as a regular Tornado, it just doesn't have the ability to be upgraded. Then we've got all the other Tornadoes around here, and we have the Fagaloa as well with a 120.1, so it is quite a lot better than that sort of super slow mini class, if you like, the brand new Fagaloa. It does have some decent cornering speed because you can add a visor modification to it and it increases its traction, but ultimately it's just not a very quick car in terms of acceleration or top speed, not really the reason that you're going to buy it anyway. But then we've got this sort of mid-pack of Sports Classics, starting with the Fagaloa and then, you know, going through the Roosevelt, the Frankensteiner, the Roosevelt Valor, all getting that sort of 1 minute 15, 16, 17, 18 levels of lap time, which isn't going to really be competitive for the Sports Classics class, but you know they're all sort of together in that area. In 23rd place we've got the Stinger with a 1 minute 13.2, and this is kind of the start of a very tightly packed collection of cars, and this was kind of the old style of Sports Classics when the game first came out, and after, you know, numerous early updates. These are all what I guess those of us who've played the game for a long time consider to be true Sports Classics. Things like the GT500, which even though it's a new vehicle, it fits into this area very well. The lap time is very much similar. And like I said, we've got around 10 cars here that are all within about 3 seconds of each other. So it's a very tightly packed collection of vehicles that are all relatively competitive. And it's just that later on, as we'll see, we've got this new breed of Sports Classics that completely dominate the class, that render these useless. But you know, without those, it would be a very, very balanced and a very, very diverse Sports Classics class. So obviously we had the JB700 in 19th, the Coquette Classic in 18th, 111.4 from that. We had a 112.0 from the JB700. We also had a 112.0 from the GT500 in 20th place. There's only 0.02 of a second between those two vehicles. And in 17th place we got the Monroe with a 111.1, and they've all got very unique characteristics the way these cars drive. The 190Z here we've got with a 1 minute 10.3. Really, like I said, although there are sort of a good half a second, 7/10 between certain cars in this pack, it's not so much that it is a huge deficit to overcome. And in Sports Classics races of old, it would have been nice to have some of these newer vehicles as well, like the 190Z, the GT500, the Mamba is one of them as well, that, you know, would have made that sort of class super diverse. But ever since the Sterling GT's introduction, we haven't really been able to use any of these vehicles in races because they're just so far off the pace. The Bengali used to be sort of the second best of that old breed of Sports Classics with a 109.737, and then the ultimate best of that old breed was always the Z-Type, had great top speed, and it was for a long time the quickest around the track as well with a 109.3. But even so, you know, like I said, from the Stinger, which was in 22nd place, I think it was in the end, up to the Z-Type in 13th, we've only had a difference of about 4 seconds separating them. Now we've also got some new vehicles above the Z-Type, like the Retinue with a 108.636, so it is only just slightly quicker than the Z-Type, but it would probably still be balanced because its top speed isn't quite where the Z-Type's is. We will see the top speed testing for all of these cars in the video tomorrow as well, and if you're watching this later, like I said, the link to the top speed testing is down below. And we've got some new vehicles, some really new vehicles, like the Stromberg that gets a 1 minute 8.0. You can't use it in anything other than transform races, and that availability isn't quite out yet as I'm publishing this video. But you know, that is where it falls in the overall Sports Classics list, just behind the Silvestre, which makes it into the top 10 with a 1 minute 7.8, so only 0.2 of a second quicker than the Stromberg. But again, still, even now, all of these cars, you can't really use them in Sports Classic races if you want to be competitive, because they're just not quite on that pace. They're a lot quicker than the old breed of Sports Classics, but they're just not quite there. We've got the Viserys in 9th place here with a 107.401 lap time. That has slightly changed from when it was first tested, because the Viserys has been patched for a long time, well, for at least one update. It had an incredible top speed value, but that has since been fixed, unfortunately, and we'll see the proper top speed that it has in the top speed testing video for the Sports Classics class. But that is its lap time, but it hasn't really changed all that much. Pretty impressive from the Deluxo to make it up into 8th place with a 1 minute 7.3, just ahead of the Viserys, so it does perform pretty well, the Deluxo. Does get the benefit of a spoiler as well, like a lot of these newer breed of Sports Classics do. But again, you can't use this in regular races at least. But again, it's not going to be on the pace of the top few. Similar to the Torero, which is in 7th place with a 1 minute 6.366. And this is where we're starting to see this new breed of Sports Classics really, you know, make a name for themselves. And they're really more like super classics than they are sports classics. You know, when you think about vehicles that the Torero is based off, the Infernus Classic here in 6th place, which is just ahead of it with a 1 minute 6.2, so only about 1/10 of a second quicker. When you think of the vehicles that all of these top few are based off, you would think that they're more supercars than they are sports cars. And when you think about them as, you know, they're obviously old or older vehicles, it would be interesting if there was a Supers Classics class and everything wasn't just put straight into the Sports Classics class, and we had, you know, the Sports Classics of old still being at the top of the class, and we had a brand new class for this new breed. But that's not how it is. Classes have never changed. And we have the Sterling GT here making it into the top 5 with a 1 minute 6.1, so again only 1/10 of a second quicker than what we've just seen from the Infernus Classic and the Torero. Those three are very closely matched, and the Sterling GT for a long time was the #1 Sports Classic. It was just completely dominant when it was introduced, but now there's a lot of other cars around it. Just ahead of the Sterling GT is the Rapid GT Classic with a 105.7. That's, you know, a decent amount quicker than the Sterling GT, but it's still relatively competitive within that sort of class that we've just seen of the Sterling GT, the Torero, the Infernus. Quite a different way that it drives as well, so something a little bit different and unique for 4th place. But even now, we're still really not seeing vehicles that can take it to at least the top 2, because those two really are the most dominant. But before that, in 3rd place, we have the Ardent. Does a very good job. It's a very competitive vehicle, the Ardent, with a 105.234 lap time. It's a big shame that you can't use the Ardent in regular Sports Classic races because it's weaponized. It really is such a shame, because it's a lovely car to drive. It's very competitive, and, you know, like I said, in this huge, what is now huge Sports Classics class with 34 different vehicles, it's in 3rd place, and it's not that far away from the top 2. So it is such a shame that you can't use the Ardent in regular races. It is possible for transform races, but yeah, just a bit of a shame that it is weaponized, and they don't just disable the weapons and allow it to be used anyway. So 2nd place, we've got the Cheetah Classic. Now, the Cheetah Classic and our #1 vehicle are pretty much the two that you want to choose between for Sports Classic races. The Cheetah Classic gets a 1 minute 4.9 lap time, and really when you think about it, that is an incredible lap time for a Sports Classic car. When you consider that's around 5 seconds per lap quicker than what used to be the quickest Sports Classic car of the Z-Type. And a 104.9 would definitely be in the top half for a huge, you know, over 50 car sports class. And they feel like sports cars, honestly. They don't really have the handling characteristics that we're used to seeing from Sports Classics. But ultimately the #1 is the Turismo Classic, which gets a lap time of 1 minute 4.599. Now at this point, feel free to subscribe if you haven't already for new testing videos every Thursday and update videos when new cars are released, and check out other classes in the playlist. But the Turismo Classic is, nearly half a second quicker than the Cheetah Classic, but they are pretty evenly matched. And again, everything that I said for the Cheetah Classic does apply to the Turismo as well. They feel more like regular sports cars, and that's kind of similar to pretty much the top 6, I would say, and the top 7 with the Torero, the Infernus Classic. They've all got their own unique handling characteristics, but they're not so different that they feel like what the Sports Classics class really should. They're not these big, bulky, really old vehicles that are quite difficult to handle. They've got a lot of grip. They are more supercar classics than they are sports car classics, and an incredible lap time of 1 minute 4.5 from a sports classic car. Like I said, that's pretty competitive in the regular sports class. So really for racers, you want to be choosing between these two. The Turismo Classic and the Cheetah Classic are the two that try them out and see which one you prefer. They do have their own little quirks in terms of handling, but both of them are very well planted, both have got good grip, and ultimately both of them are the ones that you want to have in a sports classic race. The Rapid GT can compete, and the cars that are around that area, like the Sterling GT, the Torero, the Infernus Classic, they can compete if the pace difference in drivers is enough, but ultimately they're just that little bit too far away in terms of lap time to be able to get the ultimate best lap times for these races. And obviously, as we saw there on the screen, we saw the comparison between the Turismo Classic and the Z-Type, basically comparing the new fastest sports classic car in the game to what used to be the fastest sports classic car in the game before the Sterling GT was released. But now it's just a world of difference, and really it's not quite the same class that it used to be. But still some very interesting vehicles in there, but ultimately it's a 2 vehicle class if you're wanting to dominate sports classic races, or at least race relatively well and competitively. So that's pretty much it. Remember to read the description for more info, comment with your thoughts, like the video if you enjoyed it, found it helpful, subscribe for more, and consider supporting on Patreon. Thank you all so much for watching, I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.